This is Mika Brzezinski of MSNBC's Morning Joe, a show that Joe Biden probably thinks was named after him. Recently, Mika introduced a segment featuring undecided voters from Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, 3 swing states that Joe Biden won in the last election.
So let's start. Here are their answers when they're asked about how President Biden is doing on the economy. Take a listen.
I think he's been absolutely disastrous for the economy.
I agree.
Raise your hand if you think President Trump's policies on the economy would be better for your family personally. Raise your hand. All right, so that is everybody.
Oh, that's everybody, all right. And it shouldn't be surprising in the slightest, because when it comes to the economy, Joe Biden's approval rating has been in the toilet for the last few years.
President Biden argues that his economic record has been very good. He said President Trump's was not as good. What are you keying off of to say President Trump's economic policies would be better for you?
My past performance of my 401k. I know it was post 2020 and everything kind of flipped around, but you can't blame everything on 2020 for forever.
And undecided Sean is right. When it comes to the economy, Biden and the Democrats love to try and rewrite history.
We have dramatically reduced inflation from 9% down to close to 3%. We're in a situation where we're better situated than we were when we took office, where inflation was skyrocketing.
But that's a lie. When Joe Biden entered office, the year-over-year inflation rate was at 1.4% and had not been higher than that for the previous 9 months. Does this look like it was skyrocketing? In fact, Donald Trump left Joe Biden the fastest and strongest economic recovery in United States history, and Joe Biden almost immediately screwed it all up. In just 5 months under Joe Biden, it had jumped to 5.4%. And 1 year after Biden took office, it had risen to 7.5%. And 5 months after that, it had risen to a 40-year high of 9.1%.
I mean, I feel like he doesn't even take accountability for what's going on in the economy. Not even accountability, like he's in denial that it's happening.
And that's 100% correct. This past March, inflation rose to 3.5% year over year. And instead of accountability, Joe Biden's go-to is to attack Republicans.
And we have a plan to deal with it, whereas my opposition talks about 2 things. They just want to cut taxes for the wealthy and raise taxes on other people.
Republicans want to raise taxes! Do they also want to defund the police too? But obviously, Joe Biden's plan to deal with it isn't working, as inflation hasn't been below 3% in 3 years. And I need to point out that the Federal Reserve's inflation target is 2%. And with inflation not cooling, the chance of the Fed cutting interest rates anytime soon is pretty much 0 to none. And voters know that high interest rates are a big problem.
The interest rate is so high right now, and I know they're trying to cut the inflation down, but like if nobody is building, no businesses are really coming to Pennsylvania right now to keep us moving forward.
Even if you're trying to buy a house, because I'm trying to become a first-time home buyer, the prices are so high right now.
And as undecided Tanisha was saying that, the average 30-year fixed mortgage APR was 7.266%. And mortgage rates are higher than they've been in 22 years. The highest they were under Trump was 4.94%. Pre-pandemic, they were hovering around 3.6, 3.7%. And when he left office, they were at 2.77%. So the economy under President Trump was better. Inflation was lower, mortgage rates were a lot lower, and gas prices, oh my God. And the undecideds, along with most of America, know that when Joe Biden puts a happy face on the economy, that it's all smoke and mirrors.
The point is Biden needs to hear the people, because when he's talking about the economy doing stellar, he's talking about the stock market. He's not looking at homelessness or joblessness. He's not, at Gigi's point, thinking about how much it costs to go to the grocery store. And he's gaslighting literally everyone in the process.
Okay. And Omar, you voted for Joe Biden last time, right?
Yeah.
Ouch. And when undecided Omar says that Joe Biden is gaslighting voters on the economy, he's 100% correct.
And we have a chance to really turn this country in the right direction. move in directions that are, we have the most vibrant economy in the world. We got a lot more to do. A lot more to do.
More to do? Haven't you done enough damage already, Joe? And say what you want about President Trump, but he never gaslighted voters about the state of the economy. But then again, he never had to in the first place.
Hearing all of that, you might think things are bad for the Biden campaign. But President Biden's Trump card might be Donald Trump. Listen to this group's thoughts, undecided voters, on the former president.
I just think Donald Trump is mean. He's a bully, and I think his policies are solid. I pretty much agree with most of them. I just don't like him as a leader.
But here's a question, undecided Virginia. Would you rather have a mean president who is effective, or a doddering fool that needs cue cards telling him exactly what to say during heavily scripted meetings with world leaders, complete with instructions on when to pause while speaking? Which should not be surprising, considering that Joe Biden needs instructions on how to enter a room, when to say hello, and when to sit in a chair. I'm not kidding, by the way. This is real.
I don't think he does a lot to try to bring groups together. And from when he ran the last time, our country became so divided. I don't know if it's anything particular about what he said or did, but our country really picked sides on this.
But honestly, you can't say that Joe Biden is doing anything to fix divisions in the country. Unless you think that calling half the country extremists who want to destroy our democracy is any better.
Trump is so volatile, and not only internal strife and conflict, but, I don't feel comfortable with him calling someone with nukes Rocket Man.
Little Rocket Man.
Come on. How is that not hilarious? And believe it or not, it was all very calculated.
Now he's talking about a massive weapon exploding over the ocean, Pacific Ocean, which causes tremendous calamity. Where that plume goes, so goes cancer, so goes tremendous problems. And I want to tell you something, and I'm sure he's listening because he watches every word, and I guarantee you one thing, he's watching us like he never watched anybody before. That I can tell you.
But instead of starting a nuclear war, Trump actually did what Obama and Biden refused to do, and that's meet with the North Korean leader. What followed was a historic summit between President Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un. It also led to this historic moment where Trump became the first United States president to cross the demilitarized zone and step into North Korea. If you were lucky enough to watch it as it happened live, you'll understand how thrilling and important this was. On the other hand, here's Joe Biden's idea of lowering the temperature.
What is your message to Iran in this moment?
Don't.
24 hours later.
Iran has launched a direct attack on Israel, firing dozens of drones toward the country.
Has President Biden considered maybe beefing up the public Iran posture to be more than just one word?
You're referring to don't.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about...
And they did it anyway.
And let's talk about what we did, Peter. Let's talk about don't and did. Let's talk about Saturday night.
I'll save you the trouble, Kirby. Joke Biden told Iran not to attack Israel. And Iran ignored Biden, like they always do. And then we shot down a bunch of their missiles. But wow, we sure showed them who's boss, huh?
The president also called on Iran not to retaliate, but they did anyway. What does that tell you?
Well, again, what it tells me, as I looked at last night, what it tells me is that...
Anyway, Morning Joe Mika brought on U.S. Congressman and Biden campaign co-chair Jim Clyburn and asked him to comment on what he saw from the undecideds.
Looking at their own personal economies, and they're feeling like they're being gaslit. They're feeling Joe Biden isn't accountable. What's your response to that, and how can the campaign address these feelings?
I think that we have to focus on people's everyday lives. And 401ks are not about people's everyday lives.
So for clarity, this undecided voter, like many, many Americans, is worried about the performance of his 401k and his retirement. But Jim Clyburn is like, 401ks aren't about people's everyday lives.
There are concerns about things like inflation. But what we've got to get them to see is that inflation today is about 40% of what it was when Joe Biden took office.
That's a lie. Again, inflation was at 1.4% when Biden entered office, and it's currently at 3.5%. Saying inflation is about 40% of what it was is mathematically impossible.
And so the inflation rates are down, and people's incomes are up.
Not true. In March, average hourly earnings increased by 0.12%, but inflation increased more, by 0.4%. In total, real average weekly earnings are down 4.2% under Biden. Overall inflation is up 18.9%.
Unemployment is on the decrease.
No, it's not. In the last year, the unemployment rate has been slowly increasing.
So what we've got to do is make sure that people see the policies of the Biden administration, how they affect their everyday lives, and get them to see in his policies that which is real, not what they may hear on social media.
Oh, I see. When people notice that their 401k is underperforming, it's social media's fault. Mortgage rates too high to buy a home? It's that pesky misinformation. And if you notice that the price of eggs has risen almost 50% since Biden took office, who cares? I mean, who buys eggs every day?
The misrepresentation, disinformation, all of those things are out there, and that's the battle that we have to fight, and we've got to do a better job of fighting it more effectively.
Pro tip, Congressman, if you want to fight disinformation, the first thing you need to do is to stop spreading it yourself. Anyway, on that note, that's it for now. Follow me on X at Don't Walk Run, and while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. If there is a next time.